Good morning, and welcome to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. I am located at 1563 Main Street in Peckville, and I am here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. on these stations to provide you, the landowner, valuable information that you need regarding the natural gas development here in Pennsylvania. If you are a landowner looking for landowner information, then this is the show for you. Very, very excited today. Have several things to announce, some new activity going on. And number one, I'm not a radio guy, but if I had that ability to put in a drum roll or some sort of special sound effect, I would do it right now because I'm pretty excited. Number one, on a personal level, today marks my 5-year anniversary of doing All Things Marcellus. 5 years. My first show was August 21st, 2010, and here we are, August 23rd, 2015. I've been waiting for some time to say that, so I'm, on a personal note, very proud of that. Never thought when I started we'd be sitting here 5 years later and having so much to talk about. I have still a pile of ideas to talk about, so there's no sign of this slowing down anytime soon. So very excited about that 5-year anniversary, but that is not all. Also, starting today, I am running on a couple additional stations. We're starting to hit more of the Tioga area, so very excited about that because people in the Tioga area, we need to get you good, solid information to help you in this process because I think there's a gap in Tioga as far as information getting out there. So it was very important to me to try to get this show out here so people in Tioga can listen, can become more educated, can become more informed, and make better decisions, which I truly believe is going to be a result of being broadcasting in these areas as well. So we're talking about Wellsboro. We're hitting down into Williamsport now, touching into Lock Haven, Gelton, and everywhere in between. So very, very excited about that, hitting a whole new area. And I am sure, I can say this, I am sure that if you're in that area and this is your first time, hey, stay with us. Great show today. But I got a lot to talk about, and it was very important to me to get access to this area to communicate with landowners in this area of Tioga County and all of these areas, but especially Tioga at this moment, because I believe that Tioga is the number one place in Pennsylvania at this time where landowners are signing very bad agreements. And I believe that landowners can do better. So I want to make sure we're getting good, quality, reliable information out there to you, the landowner. And if you are a first-time listener, know this. The show is not meant in any way to give any specific individual advice to any specific landowner. That's not the intention of the show. However, the intention of the show is to give good, quality, credible, educational information to everybody. So it's general advice for everybody. There's some specifics certainly that are going to be discussed, but please remember that nothing in the show is a specific piece of advice for any single person, unless I sometimes maybe will say, hey, look, this is for everybody. In any event, very excited because I know we're going to get good information out there, and we're going to start to even this playing field, and we're going to start turning the tide for landowners in Tioga County, as we have been trying to do all across the state. And a reminder too, if you missed today's show, you can go up to pagasleaseattorney.com. Check it out. We'll have it posted up Monday morning. We do that every Sunday. The show goes up on Monday morning. We have a bunch of shows archived and available. You go to the website, pagasleaseattorney.com. And here's the final major announcement. We are up. What does that mean? Pipelineattorney.com. Pipelineattorney.com. Back up, back at 'em. Truly better than ever. All new, revamped, reworked. Considerably better than what we were before on pipelineattorney.com. And I thought we were pretty good before. We had a lot of great compliments, but go check out finally we're up. We hit our 5-year anniversary. We are hitting a couple more radio stations, hitting different markets. And pipelineattorney.com, all new, went up live. We started it on Thursday night. Everything is rolling. Go check out pipelineattorney.com, no matter where you are. But if you're in Tioga County, check out pipelineattorney.com. So many great segments there, sections, landowner information. Look, also, generally speaking, when I talk during the segments of the show, it's not designed to be a commercial for me. However, I want you to go check out pipelineattorney.com. Whether you would ever hire me, whether you don't hire me, that's fine. Check it out. Get information. It's going to be very enlightening. We have sections, common landowner mistakes, frequently asked questions, negotiation points, assessing landowner leverage in all pipeline agreements. You need to check out pipelineattorney.com if you are in any way considering a pipeline right-of-way agreement or think you may be approached for one. Pipelineattorney.com, all new, very excited about it. Go check it out. So I am Attorney Doug Clark. You're listening to All Things Marcellus. As many of you know, I represent Pennsylvania landowners and oil and gas right holders. I do not, and will not represent pipeline companies or gas companies. I do gas lease negotiations, amendments, modifications, pipeline, water line agreements. You'll see if you go to pipelineattorney.com, one of the things that we talk about a lot, and I don't know of many people, if any, that can make this statement, but I have negotiated right-of-way agreements, pipeline right-of-way agreements, hundreds of them, literally hundreds for Pennsylvania landowners. I'm very proud to say that fact. Again, check out Pipeline Attorney, check out the testimonials. But what is amazing is I've negotiated, consulted pipeline right-of-way agreements, easement agreements with over 50 companies across Pennsylvania. So this experience gives me the opportunity to promote good information for landowners to get you thinking. And you'll hear me say often, whether you call me or call someone else, please call somebody with experience that knows what they're doing to work for you, because too many times landowners are leaving money on the table in negotiations, and a lot of times it's a lot of money. And I hear all the time money isn't everything, and I understand that, and I agree with that. I'm also very concerned about what type of terms, addendums, changes that we can make to any agreement that's offered to the landowner to make it a better agreement. However, there are two parts. There are two general parts to this. One is we want to get you the strongest agreement possible. We want to protect you from any potential liability. We want to protect your property. We want to limit where and how the company can operate. And we want to get you the most possible money compensation for the agreement, regardless of what it is. So one of the things I'll say to somebody is they say, hey, look, money is not that big of a deal. We want to get a stronger agreement. Could not agree more that we want to get the strongest possible agreement. However, if your option is to sign the identical document, as far as the language is identical in the same document, in one document the company's going to pay you $50,000 and the other one they're going to pay you $75,000, well, everybody is going to sign or want to sign the $75,000 agreement because everything else is the same. So what we do is what we're looking to do is to maximize the money you're going to receive while simultaneously getting you the best possible agreement. So again, pagasleaseattorney.com, pipelineattorney.com. Check it out for great information. You're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm, and I'm here every Sunday from 8 to 9 on these stations. Okay, I know I had a lot of stuff here at the beginning, but I'm going to start diving in now to some of the meat of what we're going to talk about today. And one of the reasons, again, that I'm doing the show now on some new radio stations is I want to get good information. We want to spread it out. And I see, I get calls from people all across the state. All the time we get calls. We only do oil and gas work. And so what happens is I start seeing when there can be a vacuum or when people are being, in my opinion, taken advantage of, signing poor agreements, not being informed. And I've been seeing, and I have many clients in Tioga County, getting calls and seeing these offers. And I'm very disappointed with the offers from the landowner perspective. So I think what's happening, I know what's happening is landowners are not informed, they're not understanding and not being told. It's not that they can't understand and you're not being told what your rights are, what your options are, and that's resulting in the landowners being taken advantage of, in my opinion. So what do we need to do? We need to get you as the landowner informed so this doesn't occur. Now, whatever you decide to do, you decide to do, but we want you to be informed and educated so you'll make the best possible decision for you and your family. So again, I want you to be informed and not to be taken advantage of. So I'm going to talk some today. I'm going to beat up probably on some landmen. I do that on occasion. Also, we'll go through different agreements in detail. Not going to do that today so much as far as really picking apart examples of agreements. But what I am going to do is I'm going to talk about Tioga County. But again, as I say often, if I pick an area or I pick a certain subject, it's designed to also go across a much larger region and other areas. So if I'm talking about pipelines and leverage, well, that same thing can apply to gas leases. It can apply to meter stations, surface use agreements, well pad agreements, water lines, all of these different things. So just because we're saying, hey, I'm going to be talking some about Tioga County, the same principles apply all over, but it's exceptionally relevant right now for Tioga County. So what do we have? Well, there's a few companies that are mostly active there. We're seeing, we see Southwestern, we see Shell. Two of the companies are more active at this time. There's others, I could name them all, but I want to focus on Shell and also Southwestern, but then too, this Howard Energy, which is the pipeline company that's doing a lot of the work, designing and acquiring the infrastructure for Southwestern in Tioga County. So what do we see? Again, remember, I've done pipeline right-of-way agreements with about 50 companies, I think over 50 companies at this point, hundreds of them. So I have a pretty good perspective of what landowners are getting across the state of Pennsylvania and what I think is a fair, reasonable market price. But remember, we always want to do the best we can for you, the landowner. I'm up against my first break. When we come back here, I'm going to talk about these different offers and my thoughts and my opinions of what we need to do to make sure that you, the landowner, understands your leverage, your option, and maximize your circumstances. I will be right back. You're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm, here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. and right back. Welcome back to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. Remember, I'm here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. on these stations to bring you, the landowner, the valuable information that you need, you, the landowner, regarding natural gas development here in Pennsylvania. And I'm talking about pipelines today, and sometimes I'll go through and really identify terms and concerns in pipeline agreements. And if you haven't heard that before, you can go to pagasleaseattorney.com and also the new revamped pipelineattorney.com. Check out the prior radio shows. We have most of them indexed, so you can go back and listen to the show that may interest you. So, and again, I'm very excited because today I've hit my 5-year anniversary. August 21st, 2010, I started doing All Things Marcellus, and here we are 5 years later and still have plenty to talk about. All right, so what I'm talking about here today, we're talking general points, but very, very, very important general points. And there's a lot of focus on today's show to the Tioga County area. Now, I have a couple news stations that I'm on in that area. So if you're a new listener, please know that, all the shows are different. We do different things all the time. But today, I want to get out some really powerful general information to make you think, to get you thinking about what you need to know, because what's going on is is Tioga County is a hot spot right now, as far as a hot contract spot. Not a hot spot where you're seeing all this development occur, but you're on the brink of seeing development occur over the next few years. So what happens there? Well, you get well site agreements. You get surface site agreements. You get pipeline agreements. I'm going to talk about pipeline agreements right now. Tioga County, here we go. So there's companies out there, paying, in my opinion, very low prices for pipelines. Remember, I've done literally hundreds of pipeline agreements across Pennsylvania. And so I see what we can get on behalf of landowners, what I can negotiate in all various areas of the state. Why I really wanted to get into Tioga County and get on some stations is because I believe that Tioga County landowners are signing pipelines for nowhere near the type of compensation they should receive in many other counties. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, there's a company, Howard Energy, that's out there buying pipeline right-of-way agreements in the range of $15 to $16 per foot of compensation. And in my opinion, that's just simply nowhere near enough. You can go to Susquehanna County, and it's routine that you see landowners getting in the area of $30 per foot for pipeline right-of-way agreements, having the ability to receive the same compensation if a company comes back and puts in a second line. So in other words, if you have $30 per foot for a pipeline and say it was 1,000 feet, you get $30,000. And if they come and they put a second pipeline in the easement, you get another $30,000. So simple math, now you have $60,000. If you sign a pipeline right-of-way agreement that allows for multiple lines and say you sign it at $15 or $16, let's say you sign it at 16. Well, for 1,000 foot of right-of-way, now you get $16,000. So you can go to Susquehanna County, routinely get 30 or more. I'm using just 30. So 30,000 you get another 30,000 for your second line. So now you get $60,000, where the guy who in Tioga signs a $16 per foot agreement that allows multiple lines, he or she may have, or if it's a guy, he's going to get $16,000 in compensation, where the landowner in Susquehanna County is going to get $60,000. $60,000 versus 16. Is there a reason for that? Well, in my opinion, the reason is because Tioga County landowners, some of them, are signing these agreements. Again, I've done these pipeline agreements for many years now, and I'm thinking back, I think that I may have done one less than $15 in my entire career doing pipeline agreements. Again, hundreds of agreements, 50 plus companies across Pennsylvania. I can only think, when they first started in some areas, we were seeing $15 a foot. That's changed. And so in Tioga, what we're seeing is, because there hasn't been a lot of pipeline activity, people aren't aware yet. People don't understand that $16 a foot, in my opinion, again, this is my opinion, but I do this a lot, that's too low of a price. We're getting much higher prices in other areas, and there's no reason that a landowner needs to sign for $16 a foot in most cases. Remember, this isn't specific advice for anyone, but we got to look at your case. But generally speaking, I haven't had a client in Susquehanna County, for example, sign a $16 per foot or less right-of-way agreement, and I don't know how many years. Years upon years. And when they started in Susquehanna County, the landmen and the company they came out, $15 a foot, $15 a foot. They said the same thing in Susquehanna County in 2010, 2011, that the landmen are saying now in Tioga. Well, that's what we're paying. That's what your neighbors signed for. We need to get the gas to market. We want to be, it kills me. We want to be fair to everybody. Listen, think about that. We want to be fair to everybody. Well, we got somebody who made a bad decision and signed for $15 or $16 a foot. Think about this. You could scour the countryside. Say you found somebody that signed for $5 a foot. Then you go around and you start saying to everyone, well, we got people signing at $5 a foot. and we want to be fair to them, so we're going to offer you $5 a foot. That's a garbage argument. That is a garbage argument. Look at this. Gas companies came in. They started leasing $25 an acre in areas where there was Marcellus shale and they anticipated production. $25 an acre. So what did they do? They went around to the neighbors. Well, that's what we're signing. That's a lot of money and all the different things they said. Then it went up. $50. Said the same thing. Well, I can't believe it's this high. Now, when it went to $50, did they go back to the $25 landowners and say, well, we want to be fair to you, and since we're now paying $50, here, we're going to give you that difference. We're going to give you that extra $25 per acre. No, they didn't do that. They didn't think about being fair at that point. Well, then, let's take Susquehanna, Bradford, Wyoming. Prices got up to $6,000 an acre and 21%. $6,000 and 21%. Did they go back to the people who they signed at $25? $100, 12.5% royalty, $500, and everywhere in between, and say, well, we want to be fair to you. We're now paying people. I know we only paid you $100. We gave you 12.5% royalty, but now we're paying $6,000 and 21% royalty, and we want to be fair to you because we want to be your partner. We want to be fair, so we're going to give you that extra money to make up the difference, and we're going to increase your royalty percentage from 12.5 to 21 because we want to make up the difference. Well, of course not. No, they didn't do that anywhere. Okay, nowhere. And so what happened? Well, prices were at $6,000, 21%. Now it's not uncommon to see 15%, $500 per acre for a bonus, and the companies aren't going, well, we need to pay you it's almost laughable. We need to pay you $6,021% now because that's what we paid someone else, and we want to be fair to everybody. So, look, if it serves them to say, well, yeah, we signed somebody at $15 or $16 and we want to be fair to them, so that's what we're going to give you. If it serves them, they're going to say that. If they sign somebody at $100 a foot, they're not going to come to you and say, oh, well, we signed this guy at $100 a foot. We want to be fair to everybody, and we're going to pay you $100 a foot. No, they're not going to do that because that doesn't serve them. They are going to give you a narrative that serves them. They're going to tell you gas prices are low. Gas prices are low. And sometimes that has absolutely a legitimate impact. But I say it all the time for everything. All the time for everything. Well, all right, then when gas prices were higher, or if they go higher, are you going to give me more money? Are you going to change what you're offering? Well, no, they're not going to do that. If they're going to change what they're offering, if they're going to give you more money, it's because the market is going to dictate that. How does the market dictate that or require the company to increase their offer, whether it be in money or in terms to be added to the agreement? How does that happen? Landowners become informed. They become educated. They learn their rights. They learn that they don't have to sign most of the agreements that the company is presenting to them, and they say, I'm not going to sign a bad agreement. I will consider a fair, reasonable agreement that is going to be at a good market price, but I'm not going to sign at $15 and $16 a foot because it's just not enough money. So company, yeah, you can go out there and people who are going to sign these low rate agreements and poor agreements, well, there's a bunch of people that are going to just do that. Okay, there's a bunch of people. In most cases, I wish they wouldn't, but there's people that's going to do that. But just because there's a group of people that are going to sign poor agreements does not mean that you, as a landowner, should in any way, nor are you tied to what they've decided. Because they've decided to enter into a poor agreement does not in any way require that you have to do the same thing. Think about it. It doesn't make sense. I am Attorney Doug Clark. You're listening to All Things Marcellus. I am here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. If you're just joining us, go check out pipelineattorney.com. pipelineattorney.com. I can't tell you how excited I am to have this project done because it's been a project. Go check out. And I love my web guys, Lock Data, love them. Great guys, have done an outstanding job. I'm sure you're going to think the same. Check out pipelineattorney.com. Outstanding pipeline information, whether you're looking for representation or not. Check it out. Become informed. Common mistakes that landowners make, frequently asked questions, all kinds of information available there. So check it out. And we're also going to put the radio shows. We've been doing the show, 5 years as of today, 5-year anniversary. We're going to have those shows posted and available on pipelineattorney.com and PAGasleaseattorney.com. They'll be up and at them tomorrow morning, Monday morning. I'm going to go to my break here again. You're listening to All Things Marcellus. When I get back, I'm going to talk more pipelines. I'm going to talk more of these big picture items. Stay tuned, because I'm telling you, it is information that you need and landowners must understand as they are being approached for pipeline agreements and they've never been approached before. I am Attorney Doug Clark. You're listening to All Things Marcellus every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. on this station, and I'll be back. Welcome back to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. Reminder, you can always contact me, 570. You need representation, 570-307-0702. But as I often say, look, whether you call me or call someone else, call somebody who knows what they're doing, who has the experience, who can help you. Too many people are signing poor agreements and leaving a lot of money on the table and terms that protect them and their property. There are clean and green tax issues. I'm seeing people sign agreements that are going to result in annual increase in taxes, and they're going to be, being the landowner, responsible. Just getting back taxes paid for clean and green may not be enough for you, because you're going to have a future tax consequence in many cases. So you're going to have an increased tax burden. And in some counties, they're taxing these development areas at a commercial tax rate of $1,000 to $1,500 per acre. So if you have 10 acres of impacted area, you may see your annual or yearly tax rates go up by $10,000 to $15,000. You need to understand this. You need to be educated. You need to be informed. You need to try to make sure if you're going to enter into an agreement that you're going to eliminate that liability, or if you're going to get that liability and you're going to accept that liability, you need to know that that's what you're doing. And remember, here's my line: the landman works for the company, not the landowner. Landman works for the company, not the landowner. They're not telling people, oh, hey, landowner, you may receive an annual increase in taxes for the rest of the time that this facility is on your property, or this roadway is on your property, which could be 50 or 100 years. So we'll offer you a couple $1,000, $5,000. I had one at $750, and we'll put this roadway on your property. And within a year or two, you'll already have paid more taxes than you received for the roadway and compensation, and you're going to continue to pay those taxes as long as that roadway is located at that location on your property. Not the place you want to be. You're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. If you miss any of today's show, you can go back, PAGasleaseattorney.com, pipelineattorney.com. Check it out. We have it archived. We'll put it up tomorrow morning, Monday morning, and we have a bunch of other shows up there as well. Okay. Back to pipelines, back to Tioga County. But again, this isn't just limited to Tioga County. Talking about Tioga County because we're just starting to run the show in a few new stations in that area. And it's a real hot area. It's a developing area for pipelines now. And in my experience in doing work across the state, it is the number one area where I'm getting calls and contacted for development and things that are going on. So what do we want to do? What do I want to get out there? Well, listen. Number one, my opinion, generally speaking, $15, $16 per foot for right-of-ways is not enough money for the landowner, in my opinion. I haven't done a pipeline right-of-way agreement for $15 per foot in years. Just this last week, I did one for well over $500 per foot. Very unusual, very unusual. However, that is a real thing. I've done several at over $100 per foot. Many, probably 100 plus. probably easily 100 plus at over $30 a foot. Okay, so when we're talking about what should a landowner be receiving, well, I talked about this last segment. Think about a company coming and saying, well, your neighbor signed for $16. These other guys signed for $16. We want to be fair. Well, again, that's ludicrous. That's not what you want to be. You want to keep your price down as low as possible. So you found people who will sign cheap agreements, because there are absolutely people who sign poor agreements for a variety of reasons. But just because you found somebody who will sign a bad agreement at below what is appropriate compensation, in my opinion, that doesn't mean that you should have to be tied to the same bad agreement that somebody else signed. I say to companies, well, geez, it's just because people signed at $16 per foot or $15. It's a shame you didn't get them to sign at $5 per foot based upon your reasoning, because at $5 a foot, you could go around everybody saying, well, we signed your neighbors at $5 a foot, so therefore you should get the same thing. It doesn't make sense. And all you have to do is say, you know what? How about the gas companies, whenever they signed people at $50 per acre and then went to $6,000 per acre? Were they fair? Did they say we wanted to keep it the same? Well, they told it to the guy when it was 50, but they tell it to people the whole way through the process. So think about this. Learn from the gas leasing. But more importantly, my experience, we're learning from other areas of Pennsylvania that are being developed. So what's going to happen? You're going to see people who have the right to say no to offered pipeline agreements, which is most people. That's what you need to understand. And don't take the landman's word. He works for the company. Okay, but most people with most agreements that they're presented have the ability to simply just decline that agreement. Or you negotiate, or you decline it. Don't feel compelled. Don't feel compelled because the company says, well, we need to get royalties. Gas gets to market. That's how you get royalties. We need this pipelines to be put in place. Well, that's the same thing they've been saying across the country for decades, and that's the same thing they've been saying in Pennsylvania over the last decade. And what do we see? We see a bunch of people that sign early and sign low compensation prices. And then we see other people that say, you know what, that's not enough money, or I'm not crazy about this. That's not enough money for what you want to do. And what happens? Well, after the company signs all the people that are going to sign at the lowest rate, they increase the compensation offer and they give you better language, but they're not going to start off with their highest compensation. Why would you start off at signing people at $32 a foot when you can sign them at $16 per foot? Well, you're going to sign everybody you can at $16, and then you're going to have to increase your prices. That's what's going to occur. And don't cry poor, company, because that's just not simply the case. Okay, these pipelines are going to be in the ground 50, 100 years. They're going to generate income and money for a very, very long time. So $16 a foot or $32 a foot, yeah, you're going to sign everybody you can at 16. And I'm not saying that $32 a foot is appropriate. I've done, like I say, probably 100 plus agreements easily at $50 a foot. Okay, or more. So you got to look at your circumstance. On the pipelineattorney.com website that we just revised and revamped, and it's just live, so check it out. If you haven't seen it, and most people haven't because we just went live on Friday with the revamped pipelineattorney.com, there's a segment I did on landowner leverage assessment. So very important. One of the things I try to get across in the site, every landowner is different. You must understand your situation. You and your neighbor may be in completely different situations. I don't care what your neighbor did, that has very little relevance to us in your particular case. You're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. I'm here on these stations now every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. Every Sunday, 8 to 9 a.m. So, okay, talking back to these pipelines. All right, well, another thing that I'm seeing out there, and it's killing me, where the landman goes to the landowner and they say, hey, look, here's the pipeline agreement and here's some addendum terms. Well, look, The addendum terms are going to be drafted by the company lawyers. They're going to be designed with loopholes and way to manipulate the addendum terms to help benefit them. They're not written by you, the landowner. Now, on the flip side, another little technique they like to do, they'll come out and say, oh, here's an agreement and here's an addendum. And they give you a little nudge and say, this addendum, this was negotiated by some attorney, this landowner's attorney. And so, that's a really good agreement. And the attorney worked on that. Well, again, throw that in the garbage. What does that mean? First, did an attorney actually do that? Is it something that the attorney wrote? Is it something that the attorney approved? Who is the attorney? Do they have experience? Was it something that they worked hard on? Did they just look at it? How many other agreements have they done? Have they known what they're doing? Did they draft these addendum terms? And think about it. How many landowners out there, okay, how many landowners have had attorneys and have done pipeline agreements? Probably a decent amount. And we're talking about an area that's not terribly developed. So here you are. You could sit there and say, okay, we negotiated or we did 10 pipeline agreements with 10 attorneys or 10 landowners who had attorneys. So what are we going to do? Are we going to take the strongest pipeline agreement with an attorney who knew what they were doing, who used the leverage to maximize compensation and property protections and to defend the landowner from liability and got a very strong landowner agreement? Or are we going to use this other agreement where the attorney had no idea what they were doing, just simply signed off on whatever was presented by the company, and now we can take that agreement and we'll go to landowners and say, hey, you don't need an attorney. You don't need someone to look at this because here's an agreement that some other attorney already negotiated for another landowner in the area. Again, think about it. This isn't just a commercial here for attorneys. This is about protecting yourself. Of course this company, I'm sorry, getting all fired up. Of course the company, they're picking what they want to say to you and show to you. And you say, well, okay, some attorney did it. I assure you, oh gosh, do I assure you that not every attorney does the same quality of work. Certainly not every attorney even has done prior pipeline agreements or understands how to assess leverage and maximize the result for the landowner. I'll tell you this too. I don't think there's any company, and I'm not the greatest guy in the history of the world, but I'm going to tell you, I don't think there's any company that's going out there handing a landowner an agreement that I've worked on where we had leverage and we had the ability to really do some things for the landowner, which is in a lot of cases. They're not going out and handing out my agreement because that agreement's strong. And the company doesn't want that. But they will go hand out an agreement with an attorney who's inexperienced, doesn't know what they're doing, didn't do a good job, and present it to you as a landowner like you're getting a free attorney. Well, first off, that attorney wasn't working for you. We don't know who it was or how he or she, how much experience they had or how good of a job they did. But remember, look, there's no doubt. There's a reason why we have expressions, and you get what you pay for. And so, or you're getting what you're paying for when the landman who works for the company tells you, oh, you don't need to get an attorney because some other attorney did this, and here's the language. I see it all the time. Landowners come and they show me, and I think, oh my heavens, that agreement is pathetic. And I question whether an attorney ever worked on it, and if they did, unfortunately, they didn't do a good job. You're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. We're here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m., and I'm going to be right back. Welcome back to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. I'm fired up today. A lot going on. We hit our 5-year anniversary today with today's show of All Things Marcellus, 5 years. 2 new stations we're broadcasting on in the Tioga County area. Very excited about that, getting information out there to people. That's what we want to do. Also, big day, pipelineattorney.com, all new, totally revamped. Must go check it out. Get this information. I don't care if you ever call me. Well, I would love for you to, but you don't have to. But go see pipelineattorney.com. listen to prior radio shows, read the site. A lot of great information out there. And I'm going to say, again, if you're new to the show, I try not to do this very often, but I'm going to say, if you have a pipeline right-of-way agreement offer and you're considering signing at levels of $15, $16, or frankly anything, but I'm really focusing on these $15, $16 agreements, call me. Get a consultation. Take an hour. Let's talk. 570-307-0702. People are signing terrible agreements. Been doing this for a while. And what happens is these agreements come back to bite you. And worse than that, you may be leaving money on the table. And usually, in many cases, people are. One of the things that happened, I had a discussion with a client this week. Husband and wife came in and they were signing we negotiated, we got finished, and they were signing the agreement. And they said, I've been trying to talk to my neighbors and, they're signing these bad agreements. And I told them, hey, you really should, give this guy a call. And they're like, well, lawyers are expensive. I understand that. I come from a family, my dad was a steel worker, farmers, my grandfather, a steel worker, farmer. They never had lawyers. I completely understand that. I truly, truly do. But again, go check out the websites. What we're talking about here is representation should result in an advantage for you. You should receive a benefit. So I'm very mindful of that. So what we're looking at here is, if this is something we're limited to what we can do, then we're going to do everything we can as efficiently as we can, and we're going to be done with it. If it's something where you have more leverage and we can do more to negotiate and it's going to be more involved, then we're going to do that because you're going to have this potential and most likely benefit in this process. So when you walk away from this, maybe it took a little more time, but your benefit is going to be greater and usually much greater. It is not uncommon to have an offer of $20,000, $30,000 for a pipeline agreement and see the landowner sign for $75,000, $100,000 or more. I had one recently, and this is just illustrating. This is very unusual, where the offer started at less than $40,000 and the individual signed at over $300,000. So you have to learn. You have to find out. You owe it to yourself, to your family, to your property, because it's not only money, it's other terms that you can get. So this is a one pipeline agreement at over $300,000, only allowing one pipeline. Or the landowner could have signed the agreement that was presented to him or her and for less than $40,000, and multiple lines could have been installed, and it would have been a horrible agreement. So, those aren't typical. But what is very, is common is offers to increase, and offers to increase significantly is fairly common. It's about understanding and assessing your leverage and not buying into the lines that you're being fed by landmen who work for the company. And remember, just because your neighbor signed a bad agreement, how in the world does that mean you should do the same thing? How in the world does that translate? And when a company says, we want to get these lines, this is fundamental stuff. We want to get these lines in the ground. We want to get you royalties. That's where the big money is. That's what they say to people. Well, why? Because that's going to motivate people to hurry up and sign because they see royalties in their vision. They're thinking we're getting royalties. Well, I can assure you, there are many Pennsylvania landowners who did the same thing, who now sit back and say, wow, I wish I would have become more informed, learned some more, not have signed, because now I'm sitting year, 2 years, maybe 3 years or more out. Nothing has happened. I'm not getting royalties. Or, there was a pipeline in the ground, but now my neighbors and other people are signing. I signed at $15. They just signed at $60 a foot, 4 times as much money. You need to become informed and educated, just like gas leases where landowners were taken, they signed early, feel that they were taken advantage of, and many of them were. Well, the same thing is happening with pipeline agreements. You must get educated. Whether it's me or somebody else, please get assistance. Many landowners, I'm telling you, leaving, we've done agreements for less than 1,000 feet for $250,000. Now I see landowners offered, 10,000 feet of pipeline for less money. then people have signed for $1,000 a foot. We got to get this market right. And why it's not right is because the company is winning that narrative. They're winning that discussion with landowners because landowners are not being informed. And that's really why I'm telling you, I wanted to get to Tioga County because I can't stand seeing it. I can't stand seeing it. We want you, I want you, whether I'm involved or somebody else, we want you to sign fair market price agreements. And what we need to increase the market price. And how do we do that? By not signing bad agreements. Do not sign bad agreements. Get information and you'll see why they're bad agreements, in my opinion. And I think you'll share that opinion once you become educated. I am Attorney Doug Clark. You're listening to All Things Marcellus. Please get quality landowner information. The landman works for the company. Landman works for the company, not you. All right, I got about 5 minutes, and I want to hit this. I want to explain something. I'm going to be kind of quick on this. We got 3 different general types of pipelines. We have these well tie-in lines that literally go right from your well or wells on an individual's property, and they go off. So it goes right from the well off to property, and then it connects to what we'll call a gathering line. That gathering line is a little bigger line, and that's where different well connect lines. So coming off the wells, if you imagine it, let's say we have like just a straight line coming off 5 different well pads in a row, and there's a longer gathering line that all of these different well pads are tying into. So those gathering lines, those are an incredible opportunity for a landowner to do 2 things. Say no, thank you. I'm not interested in burdening my property with this line, or negotiating to say, well, I looked at my lease and you do not have the authority to put it in under my lease, which is in most cases, landowners, most cases. And you're being misled, and the company guys aren't telling you that. Landmen aren't telling you that. You need to understand that you may have the right to say no, and you got to understand your situation. But generally speaking, that's not going to impact your ability to get future royalties or the timing of future royalties in any way. And this is based on a lot of experience. So we have the tie-in lines that go from the well. They're coming out, these pipelines, and they're connecting to a larger line, which we'll call a gathering line. And there's tens of thousands of miles of gathering lines. So we have these gathering lines that give you, the landowner, a lot of ability to negotiate. Then we have the transmission lines, the big interstate lines that go from state to state, 30-inch, 36-inch lines. They fall under FERC, which is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Okay, the FERC regulates these lines, and companies, when they go and they apply to FERC, they can, and you almost always will, get the authority to have eminent domain and ultimately condemnation. However, I can't say this loud enough. However, you can still do things as a landowner, and you can negotiate. You can get a better agreement. You can get more money. You can get better terms in almost all cases. If you're approached with an interstate pipeline, call somebody. Sorry to commercialize this part. Call me, 570-307-0702. I represent a bunch of people on these FERC lines. Atlantic Sunrise. I've done the Constitution, the Mark I. We got the Mariner lines. We got the Penn East lines. Okay, what we need to know is we need to get a plan together. You need to know your rights. You need to get a plan together, and then you follow through in the plan. So even if it's a consultation to start, you have to learn your rights. I see people just leaving tons of money on the table because the landman convinced them it's all going to happen anyway, so here, hurry up and sign. Don't fall for that. Get good information. Check out pipelineattorney.com. There's a section about FERC lines. But now listen, FERC lines in a lot of cases, you're not going to get the same compensation as you can in some of these other lines, because in the other lines you have even more leverage, and the company can never fall back to eminent domain and condemnation. But I assure you, there's a lot of things that you can do no matter what type of pipeline agreement that you're presented, even one that's an interstate pipeline agreement. I've seen 2 landowners in the last week that I've been consulting and representing sign for FERC lines well over $60 per foot. Well over $60 per foot. But now we've been talking about the whole show, Tioga County, gathering line agreements, gathering line that allow more than one line and all these other bad terms at $15 and $16 a foot. No condemnation, no eminent domain threat ever. And you're signing, and people are signing at $15 and $16 a foot, where you're seeing FERC lines where people have signed into the $60 per foot range. Now, again, nothing specific, nothing individual for anyone. Okay, general information to get you thinking. Landowners are signing at $15 and $16 per foot for agreements that they could clearly decline or negotiate more money, where other landowners are being offered more than double, the vast majority in a certain FERC project, much, much higher. And that company can use eminent domain and condemn your property if you don't reach an agreement. Please, 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 if you're thinking about signing at $16 a foot, contact my office, contact somebody. Please, I don't want to see people sign these bad agreements. I haven't had a client sign a $15, $16 per foot agreement in many years. And I'm not saying that I'm some kind of genius. I'm saying it because that's not what the market should be. And they're winning this dialogue with you guys, and we need to reverse that. We need you to be informed. We need you to know your rights. We need you to sign fair agreements. Fair agreements. All right, I'm up against it here. You're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark. Check out pipelineattorney.com, all new, revamped. Thank you guys in Tioga County, all excited hitting that area for the first time. I'm going to be talking more pipeline agreements in the next coming shows. We'll be up and at them on the website. Check out pagasleaseattorney.com. You miss any of today's show, you can go back and listen to a bunch of others. Have a great